Hello and welcome to the Visionary Chronicles podcast. Appreciate you being with us again today. Knowing your time is valuable, really appreciate it. And thank you for those who have reached out to us, those that have subscribed to the Visionary Chronicles podcast. We thank you. And for all the great feedback that we get on the Visionary Chronicles as we put out these podcasts. So I really appreciate it. And really appreciate also those that have purchased the Visionary brand book. That's what we're going to talk about again today. The success formula behind the world's most visionary brands was a reader's favorite award winner, nonfiction marketing genre business book, and also an Amazon bestseller. So again, I always say thank you for those that purchased the book. I certainly do appreciate it, but I also appreciate probably even more when I hear from the business owners that have applied the principles that we put into the book or that I put into the book, hoping that that would touch entrepreneurs both personally, and professionally. I always say, having been through that myself, although I've been with large iconic brands and continue to work with brands with Liquid Mind, I did have and started as an entrepreneur really with a penny and turned it into $1. And after 10 years was fortunately able to sell my company to a private equity firm. So again, I understand both ends of the spectrum. And the things that we talk about in the Visionary brand are really practical application and principles that visionaries utilize in building a visionary or a generational brand. So hopefully, again, those that have purchased the book or those that would like to purchase the book, we do have that available on Amazon, and all distribution channels still have the book and still doing well. So we really appreciate it. And again, I love the fact that through the purchase of the book, those that have reached out to me and actually say how they've applied the principles in the book is very important to me. And one of the reasons, and probably the biggest reason that I wrote the book, was because the ability of having been an entrepreneur and also being inside of iconic global brands, that I can give you both ends of the spectrum. So again, thank you to those that purchased the book. And also, if you like what we talk about here today on the Visionary Chronicles, would love to have you subscribe to the Visionary Chronicles. We're on all channels again. We're being hosted on Podbean, and we're also on Spotify, Apple, I'm sure I'll forget a few here, iHeart, all of the different channels that are available for podcasting. We're available, and we've done a great job with the subscription side of the podcast. So again, I appreciate that as well. So today, we're going to talk about in the Visionary Chronicles, Chronicle number 170. We're going to, again, go back to the book. We're going to go back to the Visionary brand. We're going to talk about a chapter in the book, which is kind of near and dear to my heart because not a lot of people talk about it, number one. Number two, it's extremely important, especially for entrepreneurs, to have the courage to achieve your destiny. And when you talk about courage, what does this mean to people? For everybody I found through being an entrepreneur, it's personal. And having worked with entrepreneurs, it becomes professional, but it's also personal for them as well. There's every day you need to have courage in decision making. You need to have courage with your family, with your business, whatever it is. Everybody has had to deal with courage, the courage to achieve the destiny that you put in front of you. So this is content from my new book that I just released. I shouldn't say new. It's been about 18 months now, which it seems like 2 months. The Visionary Brand Success Formula behind the world's most visionary brands. And again, we're going to talk about the courage. So I always like to start out with a quote, and I think this one's great, is we must build dikes of courage to hold back the flood of fear. And that's from Martin Luther King Jr. Again, we must build dikes of courage to hold back the flood of fear. And that's really what you get. And the reason I put that quote in the book is because that's what you really look at when you talk about courage. It's really, courage happens through trials and through areas of your business that it's very difficult to make decisions because of the risk of failure. So a lot of these connecting points that I talk about in the book are really related to the courage that entrepreneurs and also visionary leaders have in brands and businesses. And why there's so few visionaries, I found, is because very few are equipped to make these difficult decisions and to have the courage to do it. Not only to have the courage to do it, I talk about courage as longevity. A one-hit wonder, a single decision, and not sticking to it is, to me, not really courage. Yes, you have courage to make a decision in a tough situation, but it's sticking to that decision, sticking to your path and the vision that you have for your company or a brand is what makes you different. So what I talk about is that there's business principles and there are life principles. They're mutually exclusive, but they really work in parallel to define who we are as people and also connected as a brand. Finding a way to stay true to both of these will lead to more prosperous, kind, and giving life, both personally and professionally. Now, what I mean by that is that if you stay true and authentic, think of the people that you've met in your business or in your personal life that aren't authentic. And behind the scenes, you don't really know what's going on. And I had this great story many years ago where somebody, at the time, sometimes you get a little bit jealous as to what others have or what may not have. And you kind of wonder, what do they have or what did they do in order to get that car, to get that home? They seem so young. How'd they achieve it? And in this case, it was a car. And I said, wow, how does that person afford a car? And the person that I was with turned to me and said, Bryan, you don't know what they're driving home to. So when you look at authentication and you look at people that are authentic and ones that live a life that's authentic, it leads to prosperity, kindness, and a giving life, giving back to people, being true to who you are, not trying to fake something because you're trying to impress somebody. And that's what I mentioned in the car story. So it's not merely making the effort, but genuinely, willfully caring about what you're doing makes the difference. So we're going to talk about today is that courage, but we talk about the courage to achieve your destiny. So truly visionary brands live by their principles every day. We talk about in the very beginning of the book, the principles of a visionary brand. And what I set in the book is kind of this, what I call this formula, these elements of a successful formula in achieving visionary brand status. So their principles provide insight into their daily lives of their teams, their communities, and those they touch in life. So again, not a lot of people talk about this personal and professional side of the business, but I feel it's extremely important to talk about that. Because if you're not authentic at work, you're not going to be authentic when you go home with your family. So finding a purpose beyond work is a proactive principle of visionary brands. They want to have a community that's engaged with their brand. They want to have a team that's passionate about the vision that you've set forth for the brand. And they want to follow that. They want to embrace that. Not only them and those who are with the brand currently, but also the attraction of those that are wanting to join the brand, to find a need and fill it, to give back. In fact, living life through the lens of a brand that has an aspirational vision is really rewarding and it's satisfying for those that are part of the brand and part of achieving and executing that vision. And this is why when we talk about COVID or we talk about the unemployment situation, we talk about brands having a difficult time getting employees. And what I found, just so you know, when you're going through it, if you're going through that, the ones that I find in the brands that we work with, Liquid Mind, the brands that have built a culture around what I'm talking about here, finding a purpose beyond work, this proactive principle that visionary brands have, really don't have a problem with finding employees. They really don't. I find that they're lined up around the block wanting to join these brands because of the culture that they've built and it being authentic. And with the reach of social media today, you can't fake it for very long and people figure you out. So having a purpose involves creating a culture within a brand driven by a collective goal to make a difference in the lives that you touch. And that's through your product, through your service, whatever it happens to be. It's just kind of this human principle in touch. How you touch your community and beyond is driven by foundational character of the brand you support or work for. And it's really what I call this four walls principle is you really need to understand who your community is outside the four walls of your brand. And that's why it's so important to engage. And I say engage, people say online, and I say no, engage out in the real world. Shake hands, talk with people, hug people, be with people that are part of your community and understand their needs. Truly understand their needs. That goes a long ways towards customer loyalty, authentication, and brand equity build. So working together for a common goal creates this, what I call this environment driven by interdependence and collective execution. And I'll say that again. What this does, when you start creating this culture of a vision where you have the courage to make these decisions, but you also have the power to be interdependent with your team and collectively executing on that vision. That's a really important principle. And when you start talking about culture, you start talking about teams, people talk about the word independence. And we put that up on the board when we whiteboard this with the visionary brand course that we have, is we say, well, what do you think independence, you think a brand is better when people are independent or that they grow to interdependence? It's clearly the latter. Because what you want is great visionary leaders can only execute their vision through a passionate team that's interdependent on one another. So I know that's a lot of words, but it's not independence and it's not selfishness. Visionary brands have embraced this interdependent culture as a livelihood of their purpose as it continues to grow. They don't forget about it. They understand that's the roots of their company, and it's a foundational principle that has built their success. So having this type of commitment to a collective interdependent breeds an environment of engagement and reliance on one another. What a beautiful, I kind of relate it to a orchestra where you've got a beautiful concerto of everybody playing the right instruments. If you have somebody on the flute that should be on the tuba, guess what? It doesn't sound very good, and it's just one person, which can ruin the orchestration. And it's the same thing with your company or your brand. Whether it's service or product, having the people playing the wrong instrument creates chaos and horrible listening that nobody wants to have to bear. So as Stephen Covey, in his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which is a great book. If you haven't read it, please read his book. He said, human life is interdependent. We can combine our talents and abilities and create something greater together. Interdependent people combine their own efforts with the efforts of others to achieve their greatest success. So having the courage to be independent as a company and a brand builds a destiny and also participation from those on the team and in the brand or the service that you're creating for others in your community, and allows you to be successful. You know, being able to create, build, and set this foundation and ensuring it is protected is a common lifeline with visionary brands. You know, this is what I call breathes life into a stale company. And I'm sure you've all seen these, what I call stale companies, is when you walk in, it just looks dead. The culture is dead. Nobody's excited. There's no passion. There's no collective interdependence. It's all independence. And nobody really set the vision and the foundation for what the brand is going to do in the future. So they don't do future casting either, which is a problem. So when we look at this stale company, so what are the aspects of a great culture that you can breathe into your company that requires courage day after day after day after day to ensure that people are collectively interdependent with one another? So this sort of selfless, what we call purpose-driven foundation is realized through these foundational life principles, I call them. And the first, there's actually, I'm going to count here. I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of these principles. And the first, probably the most important, is faith. And the simple sentence that I use here is believe in the right things will become a reality. Belief in the right things will become a reality is faith. And faith for me, having been an entrepreneur, is really one that sits at the heart of what an entrepreneur is. There's day after day for courage and faith. These are all tentacles off of courage. And having the faith to the know that the right things will become reality without really knowing if they will or not is faith. And the courage to have faith is really a foundational principle of visionary leaders and entrepreneurs alike, and leaders in business. The second is hope. The future will be bright and good will prevail. I love that one because I'm a Superman fan. And I always believe that good will prevail in the world. And when you look at hope, the future will be bright and good will prevail. And the third is charity. You know, actively helping and caring for others is a big part of the culture. And a big part of what makes a brand authentic. Not doing charity because you have to do charity. It's because you want to do charity. You know, and God doesn't give you any bonus points because you're posting it on social media. This has to be something you want to do, not something you have to do. And the fourth principle is diligence. Never give up. 3 words. Winston Churchill, if you've heard the quote, never give up, never give up, never give up. And that's diligence, an authentic culture in a team that is interdependence, in solving a problem, finding a solution, always has diligence. Number 5 is kindness. It's a simple word, but very powerful, powerful, powerful word. Kindness is really a personality. You know, either you're kind or you're not kind. But certainly you can learn to be kind. And that should be something in business and personal life, whatever it is. Have the courage to be kind when you're not. Those that are naturally kind, you can tell. We've all been there. But those that aren't kind, you can also tell. Those are the ones that I'm talking to here. Be fair and equitable with others. Kindness is a beautiful principle for companies, brands, your personal life, with your kids, with your wife, with your mom and dad, whatever it happens to be. Be fair and equitable with everyone, and you'll live a better life. The 6th is prudence. And this goes to companies as well as personal entrepreneurs and those leaders in business. Show care and moderation with money, even if you have a ton of money. You know, show care and moderation with your money. And I've seen more often than not with entrepreneurs, and we all know it, the numbers aren't great. And when you look at the numbers for entrepreneurs and the success ratio, I'll just use general numbers, but they're probably 95% accurate, as 80% of companies go bankrupt within the first 5 years. 80% of that, 20%, go bankrupt the next 5. So the numbers aren't pretty. And more often than not, it's because they're not showing prudence with their financials. So show care and moderation with your money. And the last is temperance, which is practice moderation in things that are needed. Remove things that are not needed, meaning make time for the most important things in your life as a leader. And as a result of that, whether you make time with your family, you make time with your team, you make time to serve others, it makes you a better person, both at home as well as work. So these principles are what make up the heart and soul of a visionary brand. People that work at these companies, this is what they believe in. And they want to know that the brand and the leadership also have the same principles, and more often than not, they do. Maybe not all of them, but certainly they believe in these principles and always on a day-to-day basis try to achieve them as best they can. So we've discussed many areas that are the characteristics of the visionary brand. And these are a foundation that sits at the heart and soul of courage with a brand and leaders and those who are part of the company. Faith, hope, charity, diligence, kindness, prudence, temperance. These are really, really beautiful foundational elements of a successful company and brand that's built a great culture. Having these at the heart of your brand, ingrained into your leaders, serves as this unified purpose for the brand. Visionary brands understand the role life principles play in defining who they are, what they can achieve. Faith is what lets us believe that things will work towards success. And even a setback will move you forward, setting the stage for a clear path for others to follow through faith, through courage. So understand, you're not the first person to go down this path of the unknown. Matter of fact, in almost every instance, and looking at my next book, which is The Visionary Leader, almost every instance with visionary leaders, they've all taken risks. They all have courage. They all have faith and hope that what they're pursuing will turn out to be successful. And they are diligent. They never give up. So again, another quote by Martin Luther King is, faith is taking the first step, even when you don't see the entire staircase. So on top of these life principles, make sure you have the courage to carry down the path of success, the courage to be different, where most companies are not comfortable with this path, this venture that you're on, this journey that you're on. So, however, in order to be different, you must be different. I know it's a little bit of an oxymoron, but in order to be different, you must be different. So don't be the commodity. Don't follow everybody else. Have the courage to not only impact your company's success, but impact the culture of your brand and your company to have an impact on others that are around you. It's not just a product. It's not just a service. You empower people through your decisions. You empower people through your courage and your vision to be different. So the courage to be different is what provides for a diverse cultural experience and rewarding career for those who are with your company and the brand, lucky enough to be entrenched in the battlefield with you. These brands are the winners. And they'll continue to be the winners. You see it, generational brands, year after year. You go in, first thing you see is a culture. They have a calculated, conveyed, and implemented a brand ethos across all levels of the company. And everyone is aligned with the success and the vision of that brand. It bleeds into the community. Loyalty, trust, experience, and lifestyle are all important to everyone, regardless of your race or your religion. United as one. Having a positive attitude, providing the right tools, evangelizing your cultural foundation allows the courage and faith that you need to carry on through rough waters, rough seas, rough paths that you're cutting through in order to achieve your success. It's a grind, man. It's a grind, and I get it. This is why it's so important that your foundation goes beyond product or beyond service. You must sustain your success, make progress, have faith, and always hold true to your foundation. This will sustain you through these tough times, both personally and professionally. And that's what I love about this foundation. It not only works for you professionally, but it also works for you personally. These leaders that want to be visionary. Nothing ever is And Steve Jobs said this as well. Nothing ever has been executed to success without a great team behind him. And so when you look at Winston Churchill, success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It's the courage that continue that counts. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. That's Winston Churchill. So when you look at your destiny, okay, look at yourself in the mirror. Have a plan. Life is too short not to have a plan. When I've looked at visionary brands, visionary leaders, all of them have had a plan through future casting, through a long-term vision of where they want to be and the steps to achieve that and execute it through others. So visionary brands and visionaries themselves recognize this need. That's your vision. A dream that you and only you can turn into a plan, whether that's through you personally, your team, through interdependence. So when you look at this, visionary brands and individuals and leaders all understand the challenges they face in order to execute their vision and their plan. So providing clear direction and then ensuring constantly and passionately that everybody understands the path ahead. I get it. The road is not easy. Carving a new path, you're going to get dirty. But brush yourself off and move forward with your team. Many times, and in almost every instance, you're the trailblazer. Surveying this difficult terrain that you have to go through. And many times you're going to have to change your course, but never your direction. I always say that, is that when people say pivot, they never lose sight of the end point. You may pivot, you may move right, left, but the execution is completed by achieving your vision. You have a clear direction, and in order to execute your vision, you have to always make progress. Being able to recognize you're making progress versus lingering, I call it this state of denial, is what separates failure from success with leaders and visionaries. There's a difficult correlation between frustration and following the status quo. And this is why having a culture of risk and eventual failure is an integral piece of a visionary brand's foundation. People recognize the path is tough. We have to have courage to make the right decisions. So as you work through this foundational characteristics of a visionary brand and a culture that you're building through courage, you'll not only, as a good analogy again, like a rip current, you may not always know you're in danger until it's too late. So don't get blindsided. Understand what's ahead of you. Be proactive in setting your path and keep day after day making progress with your team and richly rewarding those who have come along with you in the journey. So again, I say stay true, stay authentic, be different and be great, but enjoy the journey along the way. Again, I appreciate your time. I know that you're busy, and I appreciate you listening to the Visionary Chronicles. And again, as I say, if you enjoy what we're talking about, we would appreciate you signing up with the Visionary Chronicles or passing this along to someone that you know that may benefit from what we talk about here at the Visionary Chronicles. In the next couple months, just to give you a little bit of a sneak peek, we're going to start doing some series on leadership. I've got a new book coming out, The Visionary Leader, and we're going to do some series on that. So it's a 6 to 8 part series that we'll be doing. So be sure not to miss that. Just to say, but that'll be a 6 to 8 part series. We're going to probably have 3 or 4 of those actually as part of the book, and we're going to talk more and more about visionaries that I talk about in the book. It's interesting, all the visionaries, and I don't do just current visionaries. I talk about visionaries from the past: Socrates, Aristotle, Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci. So it's a great collection of visionaries over the generations that we talk about. So again, the Visionary brand is still for sale at all the outlet channels. Feel free to purchase that book. Would love to have you read the book. Give me some feedback, and feel free to reach out to me at Bryan, Bryan, at liquidmindsite.com, liquidmindsite.com. And please sign up for the newsletter as well on Liquid Mind. And we also have free advisory sessions with Liquid Mind at liquidmindsite.com, liquidmindsite.com. And also, when you sign up, we'll also give you a free ebook on the Visionary brand as well. So again, thank you for your time. I appreciate it as always, and have a great day. Enjoy the journey along the way, and I look forward to the next Visionary Chronicles.